that we are stronger than ever. Let them know that all are welcome aboard this train as we strive to overcome the obstacles of fear, indifference, and divisiveness. Proud is the UNC and powerful are the people. God bless you and good night.
Thank you, Sister Nabila, for such a passionate contribution. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the talent within the United National Congress. Our next speaker is a fourth-generation businessman and son of the soil of Sangre Grande. He is a servant of all the people of the region, working in the fields of education, sports, culture, religion, security, and social justice, to name a few. He is the former president of the Sangre Grande Chamber of Commerce, former temporary UNC senator in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago. He serves as the councillor for the district of Vega de Oropouche since 2016, and following the last local government election, he is now the chairman of the Sangre Grande Regional Corporation. Please welcome to the platform tonight, Chairman Anil Juttaram.
Good evening, Trinidad and Tobago. Good evening, my UNC family. As I stand here, it is with great honor to extend our warmest and sincere congratulations on taking on one step again to you, our esteemed political leader and leader of the opposition, Honorable Kamla Bisessar, Senior Counsel. I bring greetings to you. Good night to members of the head table, to members of the hard-working team that put this meeting together, my colleagues seated, members of the staff of the Leader of the Opposition, members of the media, a pleasant good night to you. Let me say good night to both the viewing public, both local and international. Special good night to residents of Vega de Oropouche, Manzanilla Fishing Pond, Sangre Grande Northwest, Sangre Grande Northeast, Sangre Grande South, Komboto Tamana, Valencia East Toko, Valencia West. Nice to have you on board. We at the local government level at the Sangre Grande Regional Corporation are responsible for 8 electoral areas, which in total amount to quarter the land space of Trinidad and Tobago, which is approximately 4 times Tobago. At the Sangre Grande Regional Corporation, there are numerous challenges that we are faced with on a daily basis because of lack of timely releases from the Ministry of Finance. Furthermore, we at times are grounded and almost at a stagnant position. Additionally, most of our vehicles are down and we have no releases to purchase parts to have the vehicles repaired, while some are aged so severely that they are unserviceable. Similarly, we do not have funding to purchase cutting blades for our graders for the corporation recreation grounds and to have them maintained. The little funding we have is barely sufficient enough to purchase diesel to keep the vehicles that are working mobile. At times, we have no money to even purchase a fuse. That's how good it is. And let me categorically state, this is not an attack on any member of the Sangre Grande Regional Corporation, the CEO or administration staff. At this time, because of the increase in unplanned developments, what we call squatters, the demand for water service, drainage services, and roads to be serviced have increased significantly. For example, we made a request to the Ministry of Finance for $3.5 million for water truck services, and we got merely $800,000. That's just a fraction of what was requested. While we acknowledge the cuts being made, we think local government should be given a little priority. seeing that the demand for these services from members of our region has increased after 54 years in existence. Indeed, we at the Sangre Grande Regional Corporation plan to create a 24-hour municipal police shift system to assist the TTPS with their daily functions and operations. We also propose to expand on the municipal police dormitory to furnish for the staff. Subsequent to this, we at the Sangre Grande Regional Corporation are being called to do additional sanitizing since the start of the COVID-19 period. We have assisted some government and state agencies such as Ministry of Social Development Compound, National Insurance Compound, PTSC in Sangre Grande, Ministry of Education, Sangre Grande Magistrates Court, Sangre Grande Fire Station, TTPS, Sangre Grande Police Station, Valencia and Matura and Toco, commercial areas in our town center, and the vendors market in Sangre Grande. Meanwhile, we are operating with a 1966 cadre, 54 years outdated. We are now in 2020. We have now an increased 500% workload from where we started. In fact, we at the Sangre Grande Regional Corporation do not play politics, but this is the reality in which we work the environment, and let me share it with you. When it comes to the lives of our people, we are not reproaching, but it's sad to say, in this day and age, we assist the Ministry of Works in Guayco, Sangre Grande by providing the backhoe and a truck from the corporation. Imagine you have a minister from Guayco in Sangre Grande sitting at the helm in a tower, an air-conditioned tower in Port of Spain. And under his nose where he lived as a young boy, that ministry, that Ministry of Works, they have not a backhoe or a truck. Really, really interesting. We at times have to assist WASA. WASA and all is under some serious financial constraints. We are not reproaching. We have to work together to work for the people, and that's what our political leader tells us to do, to work with the people, and that's what we are doing. Imagine WASA in this day and age do not have a backhoe to do repair works, to have the road dug up, to deal with pipes and so on. So these are just some of the issues that the corporation operate with on a daily basis. It was once said that if your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader. Words of John Quincy Adams. This is what our leader portrays, someone that inspires us to become better, and more so, someone that inspires a country. I need to share some things with you all. At this time, things we might take for granted. In all the political leaders that serve our country, Mrs. Kamla Prasad-Bissessar stood out as the lone female political leader. She was not anointed by a dynasty based on her last name, nor was she given a position on a golden platter. In fact, most men in politics at that time tried to keep her down from the very onset. How many of you can recall in 1995, when the government led by Mr. Basdev Pandey of the UNC, after he was sworn in as this country's Prime Minister, Mrs. Kamla Prasad-Bissessar was sworn in as this country's Attorney General. How many of you knew that approximately 6 months after being sworn in as the Attorney General, in the middle of a parliamentary sitting on one Friday afternoon, Ms. Kamla Prasad-Bissessar was told by the then Prime Minister, Mr. Pandey, that she would have to accompany him to President House to have the new Attorney General sworn in. How many people knew after this was done, Mrs. Kamla Prasad-Bissessar was made the Minister of Legal Affairs? She was treated like an OJT minister, leaving her with a desk and a chair outside the Attorney General's office. No woman, don't cry. Could you imagine in the year 2002, 2007, people tried to bypass Kamla Prasad-Bissessar's seniority, experience, qualification by attempting to send their own family member to Commonwealth Women Heads of Meeting to represent the opposition. in Trinidad. For the first time in 2007, the period when Kamla Persad-Bissessar acted as opposition leader, one could have started to see the conversation changing from a management bent on dinosaur politics to one of all-embracing youth, gender, race, inclusion in its true meaning. I saw for the first time in 2010 my African, Syrian, Chinese, Dougla people of all walks of life, coming together to support Ms. Kamla Persad-Bissessar. This made me proud as a Trinbagonian. The fact that Ms. Kamla Persad-Bissessar had to deal with approximately 5 different political parties, all tearing apart for a greater piece of the national pie, you did excellent for a woman and a leader. No man could endure what you went through in your 5-year period in government, and still you delivered in health, sports, infrastructure, energy, education, agriculture, and social services, and even improved security. You introduced baby grants, meal grants, cerebral palsy grants, both parents and children, increased old age pension, removal of 15% value-added tax in over 7,000 basic food items and pharmaceuticals. In closing, currently Joe Biden served for 50 years in the United States before making his bid to run for President of the United States of America at age 78. Honorable Kamla Persad-Bissessar, you are just 25 years in service, and with your open door policy, your ability to canvass hard, campaign hard, sacrifice. As long as you are getting information reaching you with no sugarcoating, which is the truth, I think you are capable of leading your proven track record. It is clear you didn't came here for power, but to empower and to create opportunities for the less fortunate, not to make the rich richer at the expense of making the poor poorer. We at the Sangre Grande Regional Corporation, we at Toko Sangre Grande Komoto Manzalana, members have no objection in endorsing you as our beloved, caring, charismatic, world-class leader for the United States. On Sunday, 6 December, we ask you to please vote Ms. Kamla Persad-Bissessar. Long live the UNC, long live Kamla Persad-Bissessar. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman Anil Juttaram, a serious man who is serious about his working in Sangre Grande. Ladies and gentlemen, next on our program tonight is a young man who I have had the privilege to work with in the United National Congress on many youth issues. He served as chairman of the youth arm of the UNC. He's a former Commonwealth Youth Ambassador, former Youth Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, and he served as the International Relations Officer of our great party. Please welcome to the platform tonight, Nicholas Morris.
Pleasant good night to all, honorable political leader, members of parliament, and UNC family. Brothers and sisters, tonight we are almost 2 months into this PNM administration's second term in office. And within 2 months, they have taken away the heart and soul of this country. Within 2 months, we see uncertainty surrounding the petroleum refinery. We see they have taken away the ability of people to afford cars, the ability of you to afford apples and grapes. But brothers and sisters, the greatest crime that this Rowley administration continues to put and to do the people of this country, it's their failure to develop young people of Trinidad and Tobago. Within the past 6 years, the Rowley regime has created an environment where young people no longer have a proper future, they no longer have opportunity. Today we are seeing young people who are qualified, we are seeing young people who have skills and training, they are all on the wayside. Why? Because the Rowley regime lacks the intellectual capacity, they lack the political will, and more so they lack the compassion to ensure that young people of this country have a proper way to move themselves forward. Brothers and sisters, we are 1 month away from Christmas. We are 1 month away from Christmas. And the fact is, we have never seen suffering in this country as we are seeing today. But for Keith Rowley and for his government, they used the COVID plaster to put over the bruise. But the fact is, this country was falling apart before COVID-19. This country was falling apart before 2020. Because, brothers and sisters, I want you to recall, when the Kamla Persad-Bissessar administration took place in 2010, you had PNM supporters lining up in front of Balize House crying and say, Kamla going to cut gate. But today, it was not Kamla cut gate, it was your PNM government that cut gate. You had people lining up to say Kamla would give away Kamla would not have the OWTU get the refinery. Today, it is not Kamla shafting the OWTU, it is Keith Rowley. But brothers and sisters, as I've said to you, the most important thing facing this country right now, it is the underdevelopment of young people. I want to tell you something. Under Kamla Persad-Bissessar, she's the first prime minister and the first political leader, not only of the UNC, but the first political leader in the history of this country to ensure that young people and women became equal partners in national development. Today you have people who are trying to become leaders are saying that they will give young people opportunity. I want to tell them that young people became leaders since 2010 under Kamla Persad-Bissessar. You see, under Kamla Persad-Bissessar, you had young MPs, you had young mayors, young councillors, and young state board directors. Kamla Persad-Bissessar broke that glass ceiling for young people to actually part of the decision-making process. And that is why, brothers and sisters, the young people of the UNC, the young people of Trinidad and Tobago have faith in Kamla Persad-Bissessar. Because I'll tell you one thing, Kamla Persad-Bissessar didn't just talk the talk, but she walked the walk. When you look at our local government councillors, there are many young people in that. When you look at our members of parliament, brothers and sisters, this is one of the youngest bench. And let me tell you something. They like to spread this fake narrative about the kindergarten. They like to spread this fake narrative about weak opposition. But when you looked at the budget debate a month ago, you saw an opposition giving the PNM hell in parliament. Brothers and sisters, that is the power of young people. But it more so is the power of Kamla Persad-Bissessar to give opportunity to all. You see, brothers and sisters, they will go out and say, oh, people were campaigning on the Monday Night Forum platform. Nobody is campaigning, oh no. This platform is here to discuss issues. And the issues facing this country, it is the neglect of young people. And therefore tonight, we are discussing that the only leader that has the solution to the pollution against young people is Kamla Persad-Bissessar. So brothers and sisters, there are those who want to pop up in front of cameras. They want to go with the cool crowd. They want to wear the cool clothes. They want to get the cool people. But let me tell you something. You see poverty? Poverty is not cool. You see hardship? Hardship is not cool. You see the suffering that women and young girls face in this country? That is not cool. And therefore you need somebody with the track record, with the vision and the experience to stand up for the people of this country. And that person is Kamla Persad-Bissessar. So brothers and sisters, as a young person, I ask other young people, we have stood with Kamla Persad-Bissessar as our leader. Let us remain fighting. As I said, for those who are going to run out next half an hour on ball campaigning on the virtual platform, understand that the United National Congress is the opposition of this country. And this platform here, as it has been for many years, is the platform that continues to represent the views of this party. So brothers and sisters, I thank you and I ask you to stand strong, stand together, and we will prevail. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brother Nicholas, for a very, very passionate presentation this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, you can see that there is no shortage of talent in the United National Congress. So much so that the UNC is the greatest threat to the PNM. Yet still, the PNM can speak about crime. They can speak about social welfare. They are speaking about infrastructural development. So much so that anytime anybody from the PNM opens their mouth, the first thing I notice is the audacity. Our next speaker is a man who is never afraid to call out the PNM. He is never afraid to clap back. He is perhaps the most vocal member of parliament in our parliament. He is known for his fiery presentations, and he never backs down from holding the government accountable. He is a name that is known in every household, and as a young MP, he has indeed made his mark nationally. Because of his heated contributions, he has been appropriately dubbed the Peppermouth MP, and that is a name that he lives up to. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the platform tonight the MP for Princestown, Barry Padarat.
Trinidad and Tobago has ever seen. The Honorable Kamla Bissessar, political leader of the United National Congress, members of Parliament, National Executive members, brothers and sisters all. The talk on everyone's lips in this country is the state of decay and morass we have found ourselves under the Rowley government. And as Nicholas Morris told you, COVID did not crash the economy and hurt Trinidad and Tobago. PNM did. Today, as we inch closer to the end of 2020, very little has changed. There are still thousands of people on the outside, some suffering in silence, while Rowley makes announcements and pronouncements every 2 weeks with no follow-through or follow-up action. Just a few days ago, he told the country that we will establish a committee who will report after 1 week on how Trinidad and Tobago can eradicate the exemption system. Since then, we have no idea or whenever or whatever came out of this committee. Suffice to say that he does not know if he's coming or if he's going. What we do know is that the exemption system remains in place. There are no additional flights, and while he celebrates 25 days of Tobago being COVID-free, Trinidad numbers soars. Brothers and sisters, it was in the Parliament on Friday that he was asked what was the criteria used in granting these exemptions. He waffled and danced around the issue because just as we suspected the manipulation of the COVID figures that they used prior to the general elections, they are also manipulating the exemption process. What were the recommendations of the committee? Or is it just like the committee on the Darrell Smith issue, that it was sent there to appease the population without results? Tonight, I ask the Prime Minister to come clean, because the committee was established with the Attorney General, the Minister of National Security, and the Minister of Health. We were advised that there were 2 meetings, but we were never advised on what were the outcomes of those 2 meetings. Like everything else in Trinidad and Tobago, the results of that committee and the way forward has been abandoned. Tonight, I want to congratulate publicly the former Attorney General under the People's Partnership, Anand Ramlogan, and Senator Jayanti Lakshmidiyal and others for taking up a constitutional motion in defense of citizens of this country stranded outside who have been abandoned by the government. It is often said that time is longer than twine. And while Rowley and his cronies have manipulated the minds of certain sectors of our population who are always happy to secretly carry out a PNM agenda, there are some people who will stand up and fight against the wicked PNM government. There are others who are not intent on carrying out the whims and fancies of the PNM because they share the same social circles. Brothers and sisters, many of you awoke to the front page headlines on Sunday as it relates to our position on the anti-gang legislation. The clarification provided by the DPP exposed the blatant lies, untruths, and propaganda that the PNM has spent years parroting. the TPP exposed the schoolboy antics of a desperate government. However, it was a report carried by TV6, Urvashi Tiwari, last night, that placed the entire situation regarding the anti-gang bill and the position that the opposition adopted, headed by the member for Siparia, in context. Brothers and sisters, the reporter saw the views of UB criminologist Darius Figuera, someone who does not jump up in red, who doesn't jump up in yellow, but looks at the raw data, the root causes, and the evidence of whether certain pieces of legislation is having the desired effect. Criminologist Darius Figuera shared a startling observation in that he said while Al-Rawi quoted statistics, it did not reflect the reality of the streets of Trinidad and Tobago. He added that it was either one of two things, that the data the AG provided was wrong, or that it was a manufactured reality. Brothers and sisters, that is worth repeating. He added that it was either one of two things, that the data the AG provided was wrong, or that it was a manufactured reality. This is not the UNC saying this. This is the experts. Further, Figuera indicated that the new order of gangs in terms of hierarchy and membership appears not to have been considered. So therefore, again, not the words of the UNC and Kamla, Prasad, Bisesa, Barry, Padra, Roodal, Munilal, and others. These are people who have distinguished themselves in the areas of crime and criminology, who are questioning the data provided by the Honorable Attorney General in the House on Friday. What is shocking and startling is that these independent minds also do not share the reality, the alternative or manufactured reality as they have put forward that the Honorable Attorney General came to the House with. But that is nothing new. Many would often argue how many court cases have Faris Al-Rawi argued and won. How many constitutional motions must the Office of the Attorney General fail at before they start speaking the truth? Brothers and sisters, it is the independent minds like Figuera that told us that a new order of gangs in terms of hierarchy and memberships appears not to have been considered, seeing that the very nature of gangs does not support members ups and leaving just so. So if we were to take the argument of the AG and others who are parroting those statistics and parroting the reasons for why the opposition should have blindly supported the extension of the anti-gang legislation, Figuera is telling us, listen fellas, you see all that talk you're talking about gang membership went down? People don't leave gang just so, you know. The continued misinformation placed in the public domain is a carefully carried out plan of the PNM A team and the PNM B team. You know, I saw an article earlier today where one former minister who's vying for the leadership of the great UNC, and I want you all to listen to this really good. That minister in the article is saying, Kamla Prasad Bisesa is wrong to have not supported the anti-gang legislation. That former minister is saying that we are putting citizens' lives at risk. Do you know, after criticizing Kamla for looking at the pros and cons of the bill and whether it would work to go forward, just as the criminologist said, the exact same reasons provided by Daniel Figuera is the same reasons that Kamla Prasad Bisesa and the opposition advanced. But the same reporter, Urvashi Tiwari from TV6, called the former minister to comment on Figuera's assertion after he had earlier in the day cussed up Kamla Prasad Bisesa and the opposition. Do you know what the former minister who's vying for leadership had to say regarding what the experts supported in terms of the position adopted by the opposition? When asked by Urvashi Tiwari of TV6, The former minister said, no comment. No comment. So when the opportunity presents itself to insult and cuss Kamla and the opposition, they have no comment. You know, in local parlance, we say, they have mouth for the wrong set of people. But when the experts point out the same issues, the exact same issues, leadership aspirant Vasant Bharat says, no comment. Brothers and sisters, this is the undermining of our party, that some of these fellows, even despite only showing up when it's time for ministerial appointment, that's the only time you see they turn up to support Kamla Persad-Bissessar and the UNC. Let us not be fooled by the tag team politics that is taking place inside of our parliament and outside of our parliament. And brothers and sisters, tonight I want to ask, where are the voices when issues that affect the everyday man and woman on the street are brought to the front by the opposition? Anything to criticize the UNC and Kamla Persad-Bissessar for leadership. There are 2 and 3 newspaper articles and stories carried out daily as the media continues to prop up their proxy in the UNC internal elections. But I ask those same persons, where are your voices as it relates to the children who cannot get laptop computers? The children in this country who are told today that you cannot get a scholarship because you're breaking up the money to provide bursaries for other students. While we have no problem with children in this country getting additional bursaries and so on, it is a sort of smart man kind of politics. I want to remind you that it was under the last administration by Keith Rowley and a man called Anthony Garcia that came to the parliament and told us that the ministry was reviewing how they would bring in the criteria used to bring in people into UWI, that they will change the criteria for the award of scholarships. This is just a smart man way today that they're telling us that they're reducing the amount of scholarships because the majority, and I will say this without apology, Dr. Gopi Singh shared it with you, when the scholarships come out and the placements come out for SCA, the top performing schools are in the UNC controlled constituencies. It is the UNC controlled constituencies in many ways whose constituents ensure that if they have to turn night into day to get their children a sound education, they do so. So what we are seeing happening is a government engaged in manipulating a process to ensure that the children from South and Central who they continue to spite. You know, when we talk about spite, we speak about the Ramai Trace Hindu School. We speak about the Princess Anne Presbyterian #1 school. We speak about the Shiva Boys and Parvati Girls College. But these are not the issues that leadership aspirant will speak about. Instead, they will look to criticize our party on policies and decisions that we take in the interest of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Brothers and sisters, you will see a flyer circulating on the social media. And I want to address that pointedly tonight. You see, I saw one leadership aspirant, Vasant Bharat, is saying that he was not campaigning down in Maruga Tabellan. My constituency borders Maruga Tabellan. And the president of the Pineapple Farmers Association is a known PNM in the constituency of Princestown where he lives. I will tell you this without apology. The day that Gypsy came to walk in Maruga Tabellan, I was in my constituency. When the same Pineapple Farmers Association president, who quick to put out a press release in defense of PNM Team B, called, and he's telling Gauri Rupner, the chairman of the corporation, on the other end, and Gauri says, MP, listen to this, and he puts it on speaker. And the Pineapple Farmers Association president is boasting that because they have Vasant walking and holding meeting with them in Maruga Tabellan, they feel that they could pull a few more yellow votes that will take them over the line. Brothers and sisters, tonight I want to share these things with you. Why I share these things with you is that we must be careful of wolf in sheep's clothing. They will come to you very nicely, fancy bow tie and sweet talk, but they are not willing to do the work that is required to put us in government. You know, I see that same fellow is chastising Kamla Persad-Bissessar, saying that he shouldn't be blamed and that she should accept responsibility. Let us not tell you the reasons why we had to move you from the constituency of Shogunas West not once but twice. Let us not tell you the activities that was taking place in the Shogunas West office. Let us not tell you why we had to move you from St. Joseph not once but twice. It was the behavior of candidates like you that affected the entire team. So when you want to blame Kamla Persad-Bissessar, ask yourselves the real question. What did you do that took us to the position that we found ourselves in 2015? I want to say to you that the real debate is in the political guile. And you could meet her with or without her cheerleaders. She will beat you 10-1 or more. Brothers and sisters, on December 6th, we have a serious decision to make as a party. It will determine the trajectory that our country proceeds on from there. And the only person at this time in our party who can take the country forward, who can take our great party forward, is Kamla Persad-Bissessar, who heads the STAR team. So I ask you to look for the stars when you go out there on December 6th. Look at the ballot and follow the team of stars to ensure that we have a competent, capable, and caring team that will ensure that they put the shoulder to the wheel and not be out there moaning and groaning and cussing the UNC and cussing our great party, but instead doing what is required by putting our institutions, our arms, and our organs to work as they have done in the past to ensure that we hold this wicked, incompetent PNM to account. Brothers and sisters, I thank you, and I'm proud tonight to endorse Kamla Persad-Bissessar, and I can assure you that the constituency and the constituents of Princestown will be voting solidly for the stars on December 6th, 2020. Your polling station for the constituency of Princestown is the St.
Thank you very much, MP Barry, for your usual fire on the platform. Ladies and gentlemen, you can see now why he has been dubbed the Peppermouth MP. Brothers and sisters, next on our platform tonight is a man who needs no introduction. He is a true UNC stalwart and has always stood up to the PNM. The PNM trembles at the mention of his name, and the more that they fight him, the more he pushes back. He is a firebrand in the parliament and on the platform, and in a few short moments, you would see exactly why. He served as Minister of Housing and Urban Development during the period 2010 to 2015 under the leadership of then Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar. Our next speaker is known as the Lion of Oropouche East. Please welcome to the platform tonight, MP for Oropouche East, Dr. Roodal Munilal.
Thank you very much, Chris. The PNM may tremble at my presence, but I tremble in the presence of others. After hearing both Nicholas and Barry, I'm almost feeling intimidated to speak now. Good evening, political leader, the Honorable Kamla Persad-Bissessar, parliamentary colleagues, the very few of you assembled at this virtual meeting in the studio here, and the thousands and thousands of listeners and viewers in your homes, in your private spaces, at your place of work maybe, throughout Trinidad and Tobago and across the world, listening and viewing our virtual meeting from San Fernando. It's a pleasure to be in your home and surroundings and in your hearts as well. We all look forward to the day when we can meet in mass, when we can really have the thousands and thousands of supporters and friends, well-wishers, and speak to you live. And you could interact, and we can interact with you, and we can see your smiles, and we can hear your applause, and we can feel your love. But even in this forum, we can feel the warmth and the support of the thousands of you tuning this evening to this program. It's a pleasure to be here and to speak on a few matters before us today. Important matters that places the United National Congress once again at the epicenter of the politics of Trinidad and Tobago. We are at an exciting time in the history of the party where democracy is at work. And that is also exhilarating. There are many parties throughout the world in different areas who wish they had democracy and they don't. We have that, and it's something we cherish. And later, we'll speak a bit more of the party matter. But I want to begin by telling you that the worst year of the partnership was better than any year of the People's National Movement. Today, this country is completely lost at sea. The government has surrendered to every single challenge before them. Keith Rowley, maybe as he begins a second term, behaves now like an emperor. He's not even physically in Port of Spain or in government anymore. He wasn't in Parliament on Friday, and I'll come back to that later. But today they have abandoned the people. They have abandoned every challenge. On Friday last, we asked him, you know, they have destroyed South Trinidad, and now they're talking about developing North Trinidad. Having abandoned South, Central, East, Deep South, and so on, they're talking about Port of Spain. I asked Keith Rowley on Friday last, just name 3 projects that you are going to place in Port of Spain for this redevelopment. You know what he said? He's not prepared to answer that. But identifying all the lands that are available, because you see people like them, they get very excited with real estate. They get very excited when they hear is land to sell, land to rent, building to rent. They get excited. If you ask them what project they are going to develop, they know none. They have nothing to say. Under the partnership administration, we had a great plan for Port of Spain. The redevelopment of East Port of Spain, an HDC complex with housing, with business, with recreation. We were going to develop that. More than that, we had a plan to move the port to sea lots, which admittedly was also a vision of the government before us, but we did the work. So we were going to invest in a new port, and we were going to work with the people in sea lots to ensure that those were the people who would get the jobs, who would get the opportunity, who the value of their real estate as well would improve. We had plans. We had the plan for Invaders Bay. When Invaders Bay would be developed under the partnership administration, it would have added 10% to our gross domestic product, and critically in the non-energy services sector. That is where it created jobs, the technology. So brothers and sisters, we know what Port of Spain development was all about. Today, Rowley is clueless, completely. They are just announcing pie in the sky, or as one investor said, pipe dreams about projects that will never materialize. Let me remind you, they took 6 years to build a walkover to pull it from Hyatt to the Brian Lara. It took 6 years to do that. We built a walkover by Diwali Nagar. I think it took 3 weeks. In 6 years. So don't expect any development in Port of Spain. Don't expect any development anywhere, because they do not know what they are doing. They don't. And the more things change, is the more it will get worse. Brothers and sisters, I want to speak to you briefly as well on the matters that occupied our attention. Last week it was on Friday at the Parliament. Because you would have seen in the newspapers and so on, in the day after, as Barry said, and the day after, several persons in the national community gang up against the UNC. You would want to know what we were doing in Parliament. But we had 19 members in the Parliament to vote on the anti-gang law. The government did not have their full complement. And who was missing? Keith Rowley was missing. He did not even show up to vote with his own government. He did not show up to support his own team. So he had no interest in that law. When we were in office, Prime Minister Prasad Bisesa never missed one single vote with a constitutional majority, although we had it. We had the numbers. Never missed it. It is something sacrosanct. The Prime Minister, cabinet members, and so on, you want to be there to register your vote. Rowley was missing. What he was doing that was more important than voting with his team. Where? Was he on the golf course? An early Cal flight to Tobago maybe? But he wasn't in Parliament. And then want to abuse the UNC, insult the UNC and the opposition as to not voting. But brothers and sisters, that is the height of hypocrisy. And I want to go further and say it's also dishonesty by several members in the national community that I read. The next day, anybody who could put on a jacket and tie talking. And some put on bow tie to talk to. They put on the jacket and tie and pronouncing. If you ask these people, brothers and sisters, how many persons were arrested under the anti-gang law, they don't know. If you ask them how many persons were charged under the anti-gang law, they don't know. But you know, if you ask them how many people were convicted under the anti-gang law, well, they lost. And these are the people lecturing to us on dealing with crime and fighting crime. These people, some of them, brothers and sisters, you will recognize some of them. They are, I described them before. I described them before. They are like palm tree in a hurricane. If the breeze go from right to left, they swing. If the breeze go back from left to right, they swing back. They're like palm tree in a hurricane. So anytime something come up and the UNC appear, at first, the UNC appear to take a controversial position, they jump on the bandwagon one time to attack. 2-3 days later, I think the DPP had to give Stuart Young a lesson in law. I think the sociologist and UE person spoke about it. And tonight I will speak about it. And by tomorrow they will come and say, well, no, we didn't know that. But why you open your mouth first if you didn't know? They'll come and say, well, we didn't know that. They have no information and making big pronouncement about what happens in the Parliament. So brothers and sisters, Rowley was not there. But Penelope Beckles was not there either. Where was she? Where was the member for Arima as well? Why two of them just absent themselves from this important critical vote? What they were doing? Giving out house? Playing dolly house? They were doing something, but they were not in the Parliament. And that is the critical issue. Now, what is this anti-gang business about? It was a law passed in 2011 by the Partnership Administration, continued in effect, had a lot of debate over the years, sometimes a little controversy and so on. So brothers and sisters, I just want to share some data with you. And this is data from the Trinidad and Tobago TTPS Police Service. I'm sharing data from the TTPS. This is not data from the UNC headquarters, compiled, by a researcher at the UNC. This is the TTPS data. And I want to take my time and go tell you this. Do you know from 2011 to 2020, brothers and sisters, how much persons were arrested under this anti-gang law? 238. Do you know 208 of those, or 88%, was in the state of emergency? 32 people, I have the business here in front of me, arrested for being a member of a gang between 2011 to 2020 who were not in the state of emergency. So let me put it this way. Between 2012 to 2020, 32 people for being a member of a gang. Now there are about 30 offenses. That's not the only offense. But for that critical offense, being a member of a gang, 32 people between 2012 and 2020. Do you know, brothers and sisters, in all what has happened here? During the state of emergency, if you take all the people who were arrested, 78% alone came in 2011. That was the year of the state of emergency. So what they're talking about, this working and working. The people who were arrested, I have the data in front of me. Let me read for you some of the offenses for which not one human being has been arrested between 2012 and 2020. It will make interesting reading. Assisting a gang member with ammunition. No human being has been arrested between 2012 and 2020. Let's go again. You'll find this one. There's an offense here called knowingly assisting a gang member in the commission of an offense. No human being arrested. Knowingly assisted a gang member in the commission of a gang-related activity. Not a soul arrested in 8 years. Providing support to a gang. Not one warm-blooded human being arrested in 8 years. Possession of firearm for the benefit of a gang. Not a single human being arrested in 8 years. Possession of ammunition for the benefit of the gang. Firearm, and now we got to ammunition. Not a soul arrested in 8 years. Possession of firearms, again to assist a gang member pursuant to the Firearms Section 6.1. Not a soul arrested. Retaliatory action. That is an offense too. In 8 years, not a single human being arrested. Brothers and sisters, I could go on, but the point I'm making is this is the arrest sheet for every offense, 30 offenses. And it is shocking when you look at it. Some of you who go back before computer, this reads like a binary card. You only see in 0011110111. That is the record of this great anti-gang act that the business community put on jacket and tie. One man wearing bow tie. He said, we disappoint the population, we should support it. Support it. And brothers and sisters, in 2020, this data is at 22nd of September 2020. Do you know in 2020, according to this, 2 persons were arrested? Now, Faris Alwari makes the next point. He said, my data might not be recent. But when the thing coming to expire in November 30th, don't put it beyond them, they just throw some arrests on some people. So brothers and sisters, this is it. And I want to tell you the next piece of news. You may not believe it as well. But the next piece of news I have to tell you is from our research and my research. And I have done some research. Not one single human being between 2018 and 2020, when we passed this, has been convicted for any offense of the 30 in the Anti-Gang Act. The police has confirmed that. Not one person has been convicted. And when we say this is not working, in fact, strange enough, I think 1 or 2 government members agreed this law requires revision, reviewing, even repealing, because it is not working. Why don't they come around the table with the opposition and stakeholders and discuss repealing and replacing this legislation? But they jump on the bandwagon. This is a time to beat up on the UNC. Fail what? This is not working. Alwari say gangs reduce members by 1,000. With 22 people they lock up under this. With the other 978 or whatever, where them gone? They migrate? How do you leave a gang? You send in your resignation? How you just leave a gang? You die? You're in jail? Nobody could tell us how you just leave a gang yet, huh? I don't know. You email, I withdraw from the election, I withdraw from the gang. So brothers and sisters, they're talking rubbish. If 22 people have been arrested under this legislation, where the other people gone? In fact, one reputed gang leader, I think he died from COVID. Not the anti-gang. He didn't disappear because of anti-gang. So they must rethink, take over your marker. But brothers and sisters, I have to move on. My time running out quickly here. I couldn't believe it. I'm not sure if all you're using a good watch. Huh? But as if we needed to be vindicated, and we didn't need to be vindicated. But as if we needed to, within 48 hours, this government proved that we were right. Do you know, it is shocking that a writ of habeas corpus was issued against high-level government officials yesterday, 24 hours ago. I have it in my hand here, dated the 22nd of November, 2020, Honorable Madam Justice Quinlan Williams, Justice of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, in which lawyers went to court on behalf of children and a baby, taking court action to determine whether they should be deported or not. Now, we are not in favor of illegal immigrants coming here. In fact, we were about strengthening our borders. We were developing a maritime security wall. When they came into office, they dismantled it. They did nothing. So we are not in support of illegal migrants coming here. Don't think so at all. But having arrived here, there are laws, and there are international laws as well, that govern these matters. When the lawyers went to court to get a writ so that the bodies could appear, that the people can come to court, apparently, they put all of them in a pirogue somewhere and send them back. This is a government that is breaching international law, that is breaching human rights. Human beings are human beings. You cannot take them from the water, and because you feel it's herring or sardine and you don't want to pelt them back in the water. These are human beings with rights as well. Regardless, we are not supporting that they come here illegally, but having come here because of your incompetence, the court must determine their legal status and their rights. Not Stuart Young. I understand a minister had to appear before the court yesterday in the late hours, and he was arrogant when he appeared before the court on this very matter. They can face jail. The respondents here is the chief immigration officer, the attorney general, the minister of everything, the chief of defense staff. They're in contempt of the court, and they could face a jail for this, that they pelt people back in the water when the people had an appointment to go to court on a Sunday to determine their rights. This is frightening. This is obscene. This is undermining the rule of law. This is breaching international law. And they want us to support anti-gang law in Parliament, so they could grab anybody and lock you up for 14 days, go and extend it for how much days? And this is their conduct. So they have no moral authority to come to us. They have no moral authority on these matters of anti-gang, brothers and sisters. So I wanted to clear the air and tell you that this piece of legislation called anti-gang is in need of review. That is not in need of support. That's why we chose to put forward arguments that will suggest that this is not working, including the fact and the data. To this day, nobody has come and said that this data is not true, it is not correct, you know. Not one soul came forward and said the data is wrong. But everybody, give the police tools. Tonight I tell the police you're doing a good job with the other tools. You're doing a good job. Because if it is you have incarcerated gang members, plenty of them, it is not because of this legislation. So continue the good work. And you have other tools in your toolbox that you can use. So it is exciting times. We'll have an opportunity another time to talk. But the elections is in the air as well. In the party, we encourage everybody to come out and vote. And if I could just take a minute to share. The constituency of Oropuchis, of course, has taken a decision and has communicated that decision in full support of the political leader, the Honorable Kamla Persad-Bissessar, and her team. That is also the position of the Member of Parliament. And I would just raise one matter, if you would just permit me a minute to do it. We were in government, and Prime Minister, I do not believe that I made many mistakes in government. I don't think so. But there was one crisis I faced in government. I would never forget so long as I live. In fact, even after, I would never forget. I was in England, I was on vacation. And the HDC had bulldozed some lands for housing. Maybe if I was in the country, it would not have been done. Maybe if I was in the country, it would have been done. I'm not saying that. It was an Easter weekend. And we faced enormous protests. The farmers and other members and so on were very emotional. And I understood that. I understood that. Today, hundreds of people are living in housing sites built by the People's Partnership Administration on those very lands. But you know what was critical is when I came back to Trinidad, and I faced protests every single day from people. Munilal must go. Well, Munilal must come. Munilal must go. Every day. A cabinet colleague of mine went with the protesters to protest against me. The only thing I did not do was cry. I could not believe that we were in a cabinet, we were in a government, and people would protest against a minister I'm not saying the people were right or wrong at all. They had their view. But another cabinet minister would go and identify and would protest. And I'm not hearing you. I'm not hearing you. I could not believe that a cabinet minister would go and protest. The only thing I didn't do was cry. But Mr. Barrett did go to Woodford Square and other places. And we call the whole name. And that was a very important moment because it suggests something else. It suggests that there's an issue with team. There's an issue with support. And sometimes in government, in opposition, in government, we support each other. It is not all the time that we like each other. We may not like a decision. We may not like a policy. But we support each other. And when you're in government, there's a greater need to do that. And the Prime Minister at that time journeyed to the Ministry of Housing a morning when it had the next protest there to meet myself and Jerlene John to give some support, at least in warm body support, to suggest that, look, the government support you. Notwithstanding the controversy, but we had our support from the Prime Minister and we had the support from the government. And when people go to vote, I'm hoping that I will have another opportunity as the days go by, because we have some days. I'm hoping I'll have another opportunity to speak on that matter. But as we go by and people, you have to vote and so on, we must also consider this issue of discipline, this issue of commitment, this issue of teamwork. It's very important as we go forward. So thank you all. May God bless you, and I look forward to speaking again on another platform. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good evening to my colleagues, Chairman of the Sani Grande Corporation, our former candidate, Nabila, Nicholas Morris, who stepped up to the plate for 2 seconds, with 2 seconds notice, thank you, MP Barry Padarat, MP Dr. Munilal, my colleagues here, thank you all very much for joining us. And those on your devices at home or in your car, wherever you may be, thank you for joining this virtual meeting. Once again, we have created this space so we can continue to communicate with you in spite of the restrictions and the lockdown. So where do I begin tonight? I want to talk on the issue that occupied so many persons over the weekend. Both Barry and MP Munilal have spoken about it, the anti-gang law. I think the pro-PNM elements in the media had a field day over the weekend. And of course, the PNM B team had a field day as well after the vote was taken in the Parliament on Friday. So let's go back to where we are. In 2018, we gave support to the government to pass this law, Anti-Gang Act number 18 of 2018. And at that time, we had not initially supported it because we insisted on amendments being made to this statute. And the amendments to the bill that they brought. And the amendments were, one, certain provisions would be removed to provide more safety, more checks and balances. And the other one, that there should be a sunset clause. What's a sunset clause? A sunset clause is one that is put in any statute to allow for the entire law to die or to set. And if you want to renew that, you have to come to the Parliament to review the sunset clause and provide evidence, convincing evidence, that the law is in fact working. And that's what they came with on Friday, was just one substantive clause to extend the sunset clause for another 30 months. So we gave the support in 2018. MP Munilal has given some of the statistics. Has the law worked? Has it been working? When we had the virtual here last Monday, we said, well, come and convince us that you need this law extended for a further 30 months. Bring the statistics. Give us the rationale so that we can support you. They came to Parliament and could not provide any proper statistical data to convince us in the Parliament that we should support it. We did not. We abstained. And then all hell broke loose. Then gangsters go free. Fact one, total lie. Cases will collapse. The DPP has come out swinging to make it very clear that no one who is already charged under the law will go free, that those cases will continue to be prosecuted. The DPP was very clear, and we said that, but the initial reaction again from people who ought to know better, the Minister of National Security and so on, were telling this country that the cases would collapse. Here we are. Newsday, yesterday. DPP gang cases will not collapse. Gang cases will not collapse. Because you see, when you were charged for the time when you committed the offense, when the law was in existence, and by the way, it is still in existence until the end of this month. So it will expire the end of November. So not a case. So first lie, first misinformation, misleading people, not a single case where persons have been charged will collapse. Not one. Not one. So there's nothing new that this government has brought in the fight against crime. They bring back the same law, which has not helped them in the fight against crime. Indeed, whilst this law was in existence, 2019 last year, before COVID, what happened? The number of murders in our country was the second highest in our history. And you had this anti-gang law in place. Now, don't come now and say crimes are down. Because we're under COVID, don't say it's because of the anti-gang law. In fact, in this year of 2020, not one man has been charged as being a gang member or leading a gang leader. Not one. In the COVID times. So you have the law is not working. Fact one, no case will collapse. And here's what the DPP had to say. Very strong words from the DPP. I want to quote him properly. First, no case will collapse. He said, in fact, there should have been greater ways in fighting crime and other tools to fight crime. I'll get the actual article here. Page 5 of the newsday, DPP. Criminal charges against known gang leaders and members would not collapse, even though the opposition refused to support another extension of the Anti-Gang Act. This is the view of DPP Roger Gaspard on Saturday, as he responded to claims which suggested that pending cases were now in jeopardy. Gaspard, who has advised police during their investigations and on what charges can be brought against offenders, said the expiration of the legislation cannot be tantamount of our losing our silver bullet to end gang crimes. Cannot be tantamount to our losing our silver bullet to end the crimes. He said it was an important tool in police investigations, but noted investigations ought to have moved less sluggishly in coming out of the blocks when this act came into force in 2018. So he's also saying they had not used it properly, and maybe it's because, as Modilala said in his review, it doesn't need extension. They cannot implement it, and there are all the kinds of reasons why it is very difficult for implementation. So that's the first point on this anti-gang law. The second thing they said is that all these people will go free. All kinds of people will go free without the anti-gang law. They will not be charged. Crime will go up, blah, 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 blah. If you look at the schedule to the said act of 2018, you will see the listing of offenses for which we already have law. We already have law. So I'll read that schedule for you. Offenses on the schedule. First schedule. Possession of imitation firearms in pursuance of a criminal offense. This anti-gang act did not create that offense. It's already in the law books of our country. Larceny of a motor vehicle is already in the law books of our country. Receiving stolen goods already in the law books. Coercing or encouraging gang membership, those are the two offenses, will no longer be there. But in every other way, possession of bulletproof vest, firearm, ammunition, or prohibited weapons, we have law on the books for that. Threatening to publish with intent to extort, we already have things on the book. Demanding money with menaces, murder. If you commit a murder where it's a gang and not a gang, you're going to be charged if the police could find you. You'll be arrested, you'll be charged. You don't need this law to lock up somebody for murder. You don't need it. Shooting or wounding with intent to do grievous bodily harm. Unlawful wounding, you don't need this act. We already have that on the statute books. Robbery with aggravation, robbery with violence, already on the law books. Possession and use of a firearm or ammunition with intent to endanger life, already on the law books. Possession of a firearm without license, certificate, or permit, already on the law book. Trafficking in dangerous drugs or being in possession of a dangerous drug for the purpose of trafficking, already on the law books. So what nonsense are you coming to say that criminals will go free? All these offenses, except for one, the one being a gang member or being a gang leader, all are in here. They are on the statute book. So enforce the law. Go out and enforce the law. That is why you were able to charge people for all these other offenses without actioning, without triggering the anti-gang law. So that's lie number 2, that people do all these horrible criminal acts, heinous acts, and that the police can't charge them. Not true. There are a total of these offenses here, 46 offenses, the majority of which are already on our statute books. So police, go forth, be brave, do your job, enforce the law as it stands. And then what has been lost is the fact that if you're encouraging someone to be a gang member, or you are a gang member, but if you go out and commit any of those offenses, you don't need the anti-gang law for other persons. We have the offense of aiding and abetting in the commission of a criminal offense. So you don't need this draconian piece of law. It has not worked, it has failed. And what you really need to do is to look at what this act was doing in terms of your constitutional rights. Draconian legislation without any end. Why? Why should we support something that has failed, is failing, in order to breach rights? So you say, well, I am not a gang member. I don't care. Lock up all the gangs, lock up everyone. But it doesn't work like that in law. You will be in your house. The police officers under that law could come and break down your door without a warrant. And everybody in the house, man, wife, and children and child, granny too, anybody in that premises, they come without a warrant and you're suspected of being a gang. Well, of course you're a gang, a family gang inside your house. That doesn't mean that you're a criminal. They pick up everyone and take you. For 72 hours they keep you. And then for a further 14 days, by this time your whole life is wrecked. Your whole life is wrecked. I remember a gentleman from Central had called me when the act was being debated and so on, and gave his example of him and his family and his mother, wife and children in jeopardy because they came without a warrant and said, hey, you're in a gang. Now, even if one person may be, it means everybody, the whole family going down. Whole family going down. Then your name gets put up somewhere on a police list. You go to apply for a US visa, you're Canadian, you can't get it because you're on police books. And then, given what is happening in our country now, court cases are being pushed down the road. It'll take you 10 to 15 years to prove your innocence. In the meantime, your name jumping up. You can't get a police certificate of character, good character. You can't get any of that. So we felt that because this law is failing, has failed, we don't need to put our citizens into such draconian kinds of things that would happen. And I want to make a point. It is known, well known. I think even Commissioner of Police, Mr. Griffith, said it too, that the government is funding gangs through contracts. Government is funding gangs through contracts. That's why they're getting the money and fighting each other for the contracts and for the money. He said in the COVID time now, not many contracts going out, so that's why you have less gang activity. Be that as it may. But the important point here is you need proper procurement legislation to prevent the gangs from getting the contracts. Don't feed the gangs money. Bring the procurement legislation so you can have proper processes to give out your contracts, to give out money, goods and services and so on. That procurement legislation is so vital, not just for fighting the gangs, but for fighting corruption at the highest levels in the disposal of property and with respect to hiring people for goods and services and so on. So let's look at something here. Why after 5 years, more than 5 years, we passed the procurement law? What is this procurement law? It is known as the procurement and disposal of property. Two things, two limbs. Procurement of goods and services and disposal of public property. That is the name of the law. We passed it since 2015. Up to today, they cannot fully proclaim it nor implement it. Every budget time they come and we raise this and they say, yes, we'll do it this year, we'll do it this year, we'll do it this year, we'll do it this year. More than 5 years have passed and it is still not implemented. And you know why? Because they are out there to help friends and family and financiers. You want to sell out NP gas stations. Who is going to do it? The cabinet? Yes, if you do not bring this law in place, it will be the cabinet for friends, family and financiers. You want to privatize the port of Port of Spain. Who is doing that? A cabinet-appointed committee and the cabinet. So you have the cabinet disposing of assets worth billions of dollars. And there's no check or balance that it will not go to their friends, family and financiers. None. You want to sell out, I brought it here today, at that refinery. Act 17 of 2018, which in their schedules tells us the assets, property and rights transferred to Paria Fuel. You only discovered recently that you're not only selling Guaracara, the refinery, but you're selling Paria. Listen what it is. This is what you want to sell. With no proper procurement, disposal of property process. None. None. The right, title, claim of interest of Petrotrin in all property, rights, and other things of every kind, real or personal, movable and immovable, corporeal or incorporeal, in possession or in action, comprising all of the assets of the terminal and operations of Petrotrin, being a portion of the Petrotrin refinery site, and shown shaded, and there's a map. Subject to, the assets shall include, but not limited to, the tank farms, harbors, docks, berths. We're going to sell off a harbor. We're going to sell out a dock. So when people pull up by that, Let's point up here. You pull up there in your boat or your yacht or whatever it may be. What's coming through there? Do we know? What are you bringing in or what are you taking out? Whom are you going to sell it to? A company we're here in Trafigura that has so many bad issues surrounding them across the globe. A lot of issues, a lot of court matters, tank farms, harbors, docks, berths, piping, pipelines, all machinery and equipment, buildings, roads and drains. It's shown on a map. The crude oil pipeline located between the manifold west of number 6 pump house is selling the pipelines from various tanks. The foreshore tank farms. You remember when that issue arose in our country with the Delcy Rodriguez visit? Remember that was around the time when some fuel was supposed to go to Aruba. Went where? To Venezuela. That fuel was purchased from somewhere in Europe, from Shell. And somewhere across the water in the middle of the Atlantic, it changed. It changed. You come across in the ocean to come over to Trinidad. It changed. And the Robert speaks a lot about this. So if you're going to sell our tank farms and the harbor and the port and so on to Trafigura, what are we opening ourselves to? That our oil, our fuel, whatever it is, here, from Trinidad and Tobago could end up again in a sanctioned country, Venezuela, which will place people here under sanctions. They're selling as well. This is for the refinery. So in addition to pariah assets, this, the right title claim of interest or interest of Petrotrin in all property rights and other things of every kind, real or personal, movable, immovable, all of the assets of the refinery operations of Petrotrin being a portion of the Point-à-Paix refinery, and known and shaded on the map here. Also being transferred or for sale, the Point-à-Paix refinery, its tanks, tank farms, piping, pipelines, and all machinery and equipment, roads and drains, and relevant real estate associated with the operations located at the refinery site, shown on the map here. Further to the refinery, the right title claim or interest of Trintoc and Trintopec in the following assets: reservoirs on the Point-à-Paix refinery site, water treatment plant, all associated water infrastructure, including but not limited to pipes and way leaves and pumps and pump houses. This is what we are selling. I told you last week it was buy one, get one free. Selling this for $500 million US. You're buying one, you're getting the other one free. Because the $500 million is for the refinery. No money is being offered for pariah. The money that Trafigura is saying they will put up is for restarting the refineries. It's not that government or the taxpayers are going to get that other $500 million. That is for startup of refinery. So for $500 million US, all these assets belong to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. The patrimony of Trinidad and Tobago are going to be sold. I come back to procurement and disposal of property. You're doing all of this without proper disposal of property according to law. Again, it is a cabinet, and therefore they will choose the person or persons that they will sell this to. That cannot be right. The cabinet should not be selling out the patrimony of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. So it's the same with all the other assets they want to sell. I told you already, there's another company where you have the bungalows and so on from Point-à-Paix, Santa Flora, Point 14. They're going to sell that too, we are told. Again, some committee has been set up, but not a process in good governance that could function according to law. So we are saying, given your track record with disposal of property, given your track record, come back to Minister Young and Minister Faris rental. Do you understand what's going on? Sitting in the cabinet with friends and colleagues in the cabinet. Faris gets $43 million for rent and to furnish the building. He walks out of the cabinet meeting, he recuses himself, he goes in the corridor, fellas sit down and say, agreed, okay, Faris, come back. So it's a tag team. Then Young now has to walk out. Between them, 97 times. And what is that? It's because friend or family is involved. It's called conflict of interest, that you have to leave the meeting. For tag team, Faris goes out, come back, Young steps out, family getting contracts again. From whom? From the cabinet. From their friends and their colleagues in the cabinet. Listen to this. This is from the cabinet response to a Freedom of Information Act. The amount of times that Faris recused himself. In 2016, 1. Lease rental of office space in the building located at 1 Alexandra Street, known as Alexandra Place. 2. Lease rental of office in a building located at corner Tragwood Road and Elizabeth Street, St. Clair. Further, a proposed lease rental of office space in the building known as Cheapstone House, located at 56 Frederick Street, to accommodate the Ministry of Community Development, Culture and the Arts. Continuing, lease rental of office space in the building located at number 5 Grace Street, Port of Spain, to accommodate the Trinidad and Tobago Fire Service, Ministry of National Security. Continuing, 2017, Port of Spain office accommodation for the Ministry of Education, the Immigration Division of the Ministry of National Security, the Ministry of the Attorney General and Legal Affairs, and the Ministry of Finance. Continuing, doesn't end. This man really have property, Munina MP. They talked about, they really like to talk about buildings and land. Properties leased in 2017, unoccupied, proposed lease rental of warehouse space in a building located at number 50 El Socorro Road, Sama. Did you know that? Another one. Proposal for the lease of lot of land in the Woodbrook estate for residential purposes. I don't know for whom or why. Lease of a lot of land in the Woodbrook estate, I said, I'm sorry, for residential purposes, residential commercial. 2018, lease rental of office space in a building known as Sheepstone House again, 56 Frederick Street for community development, culture and the arts. Proposal for the continued engagement of private healthcare institutions for the provision of surgical, radiological, and lab services for patients of the public healthcare system. Why would he recuse himself from that? Why? Does he have an interest in any private medical institution? I told you last week about one Alexandra Place, medical place, that he had recused himself with respect to some CT scans when they were dealing with the issue of removing the customs and the VAT and so on off the scans. But here now, this is continued engagement of private healthcare institutions to provide surgical, radiological, lab services for patients of the public healthcare. So this is where government will pay for these people in private institutions. Tell us, what is your interest? Why you recuse yourself? Lease rental, building located 1929 and 29A Estates Trace, Barataria, to accommodate Valuation Division, Ministry of Finance. Why did you recuse yourself from that one? Lease rental of office space in building number 3 Alexander Street, St. Clair. My God, to accommodate the Ministry of Labor and Small Enterprise Development. You know what's going on here? Like all these buildings and all these ministries occupying seem to. This gentleman has some interest in them and is sitting in a cabinet, recusing himself to allow all this to take place. And no proper procurement law in place, no proper process to safeguard the taxpayers of Trinidad and Tobago. At the end of the day, that is what is happening with, when we come to procurement. Why don't they want to proclaim? Because their friends and family and finances don't want procurement, they don't want it. Because they could go down to Australia and say, we're buying all these boats. You have our boats parked up in Strawberries Bay. They can't even get fuel. You won't even provide the money to the Coast Guard to put fuel in the vessels, but you run down to Australia to buy 2 boats without any proper procurement. What you did, you sat and you drank tea? Or did you engage them in your hotel room in your pajamas and say, okay, I'm going to buy these 2 boats, billions and millions of dollars. They came in, they said, tighten your belt, no money, the partnership, leave the treasury empty. But immediately they came to the office, they're buying aircraft, aeroplanes. Again, no proper procurement to put in that order. Planes were supposed to be, they were building them. About 6 years later, they still didn't get them. Then now, it allows them to sit in a cabinet and to give away taxpayers' money to friends, family, and financiers. So when you want to privatize a port, who is doing it again? I repeat, this is very important. You're sitting in a cabinet. When you want to sell the NP assets, you're sitting in a cabinet. No process, none whatsoever. There's no public knowledge of what is happening, of what the bids are. They say non-disclosure, confidential, everything else. But when it's public money, taxpayers' money, the public deserves to know, in the interest of the people of Trinidad and Tobago, what is going on behind the closed doors of the cabinet. Let's talk about Stuart Young. In 2018, he recused himself. Award of mandate to NCB Global Finance Limited to arrange a 10-year fixed-rate loan in the amount of TT $180 million for UDICOT in respect of Phase 28 of the Chancery Lane Office Complex. Continue in 2018, award of a mandate to NCB Global Finance Limited to arrange a 9-year fixed-rate bond to the amount of 400 TT million to facilitate repayment of the existing MTS loans due on November 14, 2019. Continuing, award of a mandate to NCB Global Finance Limited for the provision of a 2-year US $25 million fixed-rate loan facility to refinance the existing government-guaranteed US $25 million facility arranged by FCB for Petrotrin. 2020, award of a mandate to NCB Global Finance Limited to arrange a fixed-rate bond in the amount of TT $1.5 billion for the purpose of providing budgetary support for fiscal year 2020. Continuing, 2020. Award of a mandate to NCB Global Finance Limited to provide a TT 125 fixed-rate loan for WASA to refinance tranche 1 of WASA's $432.2 million, 3-tranche bond due to mature on June 3, 2020. Continuing, award of mandate to NCB Global Finance Limited to provide a TT 125 million fixed-rate loan for the purpose of financing WASA's liabilities. These are just some. Total of 97 times these guys walk out of the cabinet and walk back in. Tag team, I say, 1 in, 1 out. When one go out, agreed, come back, send the next one. That's what's going on in that cabinet. Now you say the Prime Minister defended by saying nothing is illegal, but something is totally morally wrong that a cabinet is giving to their own ministers. All these contracts, all these things that are happening in that cabinet, and the country doesn't care about procurement legislation. We say, bring on the procurement legislation. Let us starve the gangs of the funding by having proper processes for giving them contracts. Bring on procurement so the white-collar gangs will also be dealt with, the friends, the family, and the financiers. Bring on procurement. We say today, and we repeat, no procurement, no support. No procurement, no support. If you do not bring the legislation, we will isolate you. We will isolate you. That is what you said to our government. We will isolate you. We will not support you. We will not allow for the raiding of the Treasury without proper law enforcement processes in place. So I will not campaign tonight. I campaigned all day yesterday. And I campaigned all day before that. And I'll campaign again tomorrow. But for tonight, I say, be at peace. God bless you. And for the haters, you all take a little time off and find something nice to do in your life, you know. All the haters out there. I feel sorry for some of them because they're always so angry about everything. Angry, do they ever smile? You think they smile? You have to worry what's going on in some people's lives, that every day they will spend time to go on our Facebook and spew hate. Hate. People in their bed Sunday morning, get up making breakfast, do it. Them out there. Sunday morning, Sunday night, Monday morning. All now, they're all over the nasty Facebook page and so on. Haters. Get a life, guys. Get a life. Get a life. Spend some time with your wife and your children and your family and so on. There must be better things to do with your time. And whatever and whenever and however, we will have a free and fair election on December 6th. God bless you and thank you very much.
I will fight